The inside, a chaos of clutter.
Frankly, it was a disaster. There was stuff everywhere.
I could tell Dee Dee did a lot of just hoarding and stuff piled up. I mean, like chest high to the back of the room.
One of the bedrooms had so many items piled into it that you couldn't even walk into it. The thing that shocked me the most was the closet inside Gypsy's house.
I was like, holy, y'all need to get it over here right now and look at this. I mean, my mouth dropped.
Even written on several of the bottles of Gypsy's medication as if she was writing it for a child. For the anti-seizure medication, it would say, shaky baby. The organization of the medications was shocking to me.
So I'm spending my Saturday night going through old photographs. I'm looking for a very specific photo. But if anybody watched my documentary, if you remember Chrissy saying that she found a prescription pad, oh, look what I found. It's still there. That's wild.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Well, it would appear that Gypsy Rose Blanchard decided to prove everybody wrong and show that the infamous prescription pad that was stolen by her mother Dee Dee actually does exist. But Gypsy, in an effort to not talk about her case anymore, decided it would be a good idea to go through some of her childhood photos and documents and, talk about the case, because she's not talking about the case, right? That makes sense. But no, so she's been putting a little bit of information out there that we haven't really been able to verify, which is, of course, pleasant for us because we all like to know what's going on. So we're going to get into what Gypsy's been saying lately, and of course, when it comes to Gypsy, we've also got to kind of listen to some of her friends and what they're saying in their group, because they always like to release a little bit of information too that they've been told. So we've got things about the prescription pad, and I want to get into all of it with you guys, but before we do, make sure you like and hit the subscribe button so you can keep up to date with everything I've got coming out on my channel. I also want to take a quick moment to give a shout out for gifting me with a super thanks on my last video to Just Beachy Vibes. So thank you for that, and anyone else supporting me and my channel. I appreciate all of you guys. But let's go ahead and dive into what Gypsy's been saying lately and dig a little bit more information up. So whenever Gypsy Rose decided to upload her video to TikTok, she unfortunately decided to kind of take shots at all medical professionals for having this prescription pad and saying that they were essentially irresponsible and that they should have been guarded better and that this should have never been allowed to happen. But while this is all going on, Gypsy and her friends are also kind of maintaining that they don't really know if Dee Dee ever actually used it. And then we're going to get into some of the lives where they're discussing this and a couple of other things regarding this prescription pad. I feel like, I don't know, you really can't hold the doctors necessarily responsible if it really was Dee Dee that stole the pad. I don't know. That's just how I feel. And I know a lot of us probably are thinking, well, or how do we even know that it was Dee Dee that actually stole this prescription pad? We know that both Gypsy and Dee Dee had a little bit of a history of taking things that didn't belong to them, stealing from stores and various places. So I think the odds are that, if anything, it's like 50-50 chance that it could have been either Dee Dee or Gypsy, or it could have just been given to Gypsy by the doctors. And whenever the hospital started to convert over to electronic prescriptions and things like that, because funny enough, the expiration date on the prescription is 2007, and from what I've researched, Children's Mercy Hospital was already converting over to electronic prescriptions in 2007. So we're going to get into all of that, but let's go ahead and watch Gypsy's video about what she has to say about this and how she was feeling whenever she discovered this prescription pad. Because for whatever reason, being out of prison for 2 years, she is just now getting into all of the things that she has from her mother's house, all of the records and things like that. She gave them to her friend Bree, but actually going through everything herself, I guess this is really the first time that she's ever decided to do this, but, whatever. She decided to upload some of the photos that she has from her childhood. And the reason that she decided to upload this was because she is a blonde child, because that is so very important to her. And she wants everyone to know that she once upon a time was a blonde child. Now, the obsession with it, don't understand it. I mean, I think it has something to do with maybe jealousy of Mia, but I don't even believe Mia is a natural blonde. So I'm not really sure, but she literally captioned it, "I'm a blonde," which is so bizarre to me. I feel like it's not normal to be so, like, clingy to this hair color. I don't really understand it. I'm sure there's some, like, psychological reason or whatever. Maybe she just prefers blondes, or I don't know. I don't get it. If it had to do with Ken, and Ken liking blondes or whatever, like, her being a blonde as a baby, like, I don't know. It's just weird to me. So then she uploaded these photos of her as a child where she's outside playing and then sick on the couch, which it looks like she's just got a wet washcloth on her head. Maybe she had a little bit of a runny nose. Looks like a standard cold or something. I mean, I know my dad would do the same, or my grandparents would do the same. If I was running a fever, I'd get a cold rag and put it on my head. Doesn't look too serious in this photo. To be completely honest, she looks like a relatively happy child, I would say. But the caption in it is probably what she's really trying to portray. She says, "Looking back at these photos at 34, I see a childhood that bounced between truly normal moments and others that never fully made sense. Some, but not all, of the medical situations were necessary, but others were created, exaggerated, or pushed onto me in ways that no child could understand. This is what Munchausen by proxy can look like. Smiles one day, hospital beds the next, and a childhood spent surviving what was never real, such as cancer. I share this not for sympathy, but for awareness. If my story helps even one person recognize the signs and protect a child, then these memories become something more than pain. They become purpose. Munchausen by proxy doesn't usually start as extreme or obvious. It often begins with something small, a real illness, a minor symptom, or a normal childhood issue. In the beginning, the caregiver might exaggerate symptoms just a little or seek extra attention from doctors. From the outside, it can look like a concerned parent being overly cautious, but over time the pattern grows. A caregiver may start reporting symptoms that the child never mentioned. Then they might begin pushing for more tests or more frequent doctor visits. Eventually, unnecessary treatments or medications are introduced. In more severe cases, the caregiver may create or cause symptoms to keep the cycle going. What makes MBP so dangerous is that the child is trapped in a world where being sick becomes expected, normal, and sometimes the only way to receive approval or attention. And because some health issues may be real, it blurs the line, making it even harder for the child to recognize what's happening. Hashtag Gypsy Rose Blanchard, hashtag Munchausen by proxy. It's always so crazy how she'll always hashtag her own name when she's making posts. But yet she doesn't want attention, right? I've always found that so funny how she would be like, I don't want to be an influencer. I didn't want this. I just want to post on TikTok like normal. Why are you hashtagging your own name if you don't want attention? It's just funny. And then we've got the video where she is showing the infamous prescription that was stolen by her mother, or at least that's what they all allege. And what's funny about this is that I was always under the impression that Christy said that this was stolen from the hospital that Dee Dee worked at. And the reason why I was always under that impression was because that's literally what was said. We'll get into a couple of other things about it.
Okay, so for those of you that don't know what this is and what this is all about, so in my documentary, Christy had talked about finding a prescription pad underneath my mom's bed when they went to go get some of our stuff from the old Habitat house. So until now, it had never been photographed or seen in documentaries or anything. And so I recently came across it in a box of old photos. To my knowledge, it has never been used. I don't know. I mean, I could at least say there's no documentation of my mom using it. I don't know when she took it. It would have had to have been between years 2006 to 2015. But it is legit. It's real. It's got this reflector thing on the back. So I don't want to keep it. I don't want it in my house. I am taking full opportunity to document its existence, but a bigger conversation needs to be had about how was she able to even get this. So I just I might be acting on emotion right now because it's I've heard of it, but to actually see it, it's a whole different other ballgame. And so I just want to if the nurses or the doctors of this hospital is even looking at this right now, watching this video, this needs to be your highest priority. This is just as important as your badge, as your license. You do not leave this for people to find or whatever. This is not a toy. This is medical equipment. And my mind is blown. My mind is just blown, okay? I think I'm within my right to be upset. I really am. I think people need to have these conversations. Doctors, nurses, whatever, if you're watching, do not leave this for people to get. It may be too late for me, but do better. For real. Be fucking for real. Do better.
You hear that, medical professionals? How dare you? Do you not even realize how important that prescription pad is? I mean, yeah, just because you're doctors, but do you really know that this is not a toy? She's literally sitting there saying, it's too late for me, but be better for the next. That's so crazy. And she, in the sentence before, is literally I don't know what happened with it or if anything ever came from it. I don't know, maybe she got me an extra inhaler. Because again, we know that Gypsy wasn't really on anything crazy, at least in my opinion, when it comes to medications. But she's doing a lot, and for somebody that didn't even know that if it really existed or not, and then she's so upset about it but still doesn't know for sure if her mother ever actually used it. How do we know that it wasn't just an accident? What's crazy though is it has 0 folds, so I feel if she was stealing it, she would have folded it up really quick or done something to conceal it, but it looks just perfectly flat. Maybe she set something down and picked it back up, picked up other papers with it, or it was some sort of accidental thing. But knowing that Dee Dee did work in a hospital-ish setting, in the medical whatever setting, I feel she would know that how strict these things are and how you can't just really write whatever you want and sign whatever you want. You have to have specific identifiers, you have to have the signatures down, you've got to have all of these specific things down to make a prescription look legitimate. I feel there would be somebody that would be goofy enough to get something like this, and it would be the 16-year-old, because this occurred in 2007. Gypsy was born in, 91? So she would have been 16 at the time. I feel that's something that a goofy teenager would do. Just being honest. Not somebody that knows how the medical system works. Maybe she did. I'm not totally ruling it out because we know that Dee Dee did have a little bit of a habit of stealing. That's nothing to deny. But regardless, we don't know, and it's not proven Dee Dee tried to write out any prescriptions or anything like that. And we don't know if Gypsy at this moment in time was stealing her mother's pain medication. Again, that's something a stupid teenager would do, thinking that they could steal part of a prescription pad and write a script for whatever. I feel maybe Gypsy would try to do that. I don't really know. But regardless, I am glad to see it just because I also doubted its existence. But for it to have 0 folds in it, doesn't even look like it was attempted to be concealed. I did kind of doubt its authenticity when I was first looking at it. And I was trying to listen to the lives and listen to what Gypsy was saying about it to get some special identifiers or whatever. She says it does have a watermark in it. And whenever they're printing these things out, they have certain things in there that they're looking for, aside from the codes and stuff like that, and the numbers on the bottom that will help you identify which number of pad it is or whatever. But in the paper itself, similar to a $100 bill, when you hold it up to the light, they've got those things in it. Prescription pads also have that as a security measure. So she did say that it does have one, and I'm not talking about the one on the back that says RX, but in between the paper. That way when you copy it or you do these things, it will say something inside that paper to show that it's legitimate. So, what's interesting about the whole prescription pad thing is that nobody would have known anything about it had Gypsy's attorney, Mike Stanfield, and Christy and Rod not brought it up to everybody. Nobody would have known it because, again, it was never included in any of the police evidence inventory list or any of the crime scene photos or anything like that. It was only discovered, apparently, whenever Christy and Rod were cleared to go into the house, whenever they got what they needed from the crime scene, and they were allowed to go into the home and search around and get whatever they wanted and pull it out. But there's a couple different versions of what we've heard from Christy regarding this prescription pad. But let's kind of go through and listen to what she said. She did say something in a TikTok live that I know also Becca Scoops has played, where she's talking about how she discovered the pad. But if we go back and look at the history of it and what has been said throughout other documentaries, we can see that the story isn't always necessarily the same. Now, does it matter in the grand scheme of things? I don't really know. But that was the reason why a lot of people doubted the story originally, because it just didn't really make a lot of sense. I know personally, I thought if there was a prescription pad and if Christy just so happened to find it whenever they were at Dee Dee's house and it was from the hospital that Dee Dee, Christy, and Laura all worked at together, because that was the original story. And I can show you where it was the original story because it's documented online.
The story has never changed because it doesn't need to change when it's the truth. Okay, so we in Dee Dee and Gypsy's house, Gypsy had access to get the pictures, the big thing of pictures that was under her mama's bed. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to grab the pictures, y'all. I put my hand under the bed. The first thing my hand went in was cat shit. Was I happy about that? No.
But did you report it? Like,
yes.
Why have we never seen this?
I did report it.
Did you take a picture?
I'm getting to that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So, of course, I went wash my hands, and because nobody really knows, there was still a cat in the house when we went. I was like, what is this? It was a small little pad, and I pulled it out, and I said, holy shit. And
was there anything written on it?
It looked like it was a fairly new pad, but you could see that some prescriptions were.
What do you think she was right?
Okay.
Can I ask you a question about the prescription pad?
What's that?
Can I ask you a question about the prescription pad that Christy says she found? Where did she find that prescription pad, and have you actually seen that prescription pad?
Absolutely. I was there with her. Myself.
Okay, and where was it when you found it, Rod?
In the bedroom somewhere.
It was in the bedroom. Okay. Now, here's the thing about that. What I can tell you is that Christy actually gave me the book from inside Dee Dee's home, which showed all the records of her picking up every single medication for her and Dee and Gypsy for several years. They weren't using several different pharmacies, and all the things that Gypsy was prescribed at the time, I do believe was medically necessary.
Rod did not want to go clean out that house, but I was there, Rod's sister, and my mother-in-law were there. And we're like, let's get this done because people are already starting to come creep around. They could break in, steal stuff, So when we got there, the lady across the street, she comes outside, she looks, goes back inside, she comes with some binoculars. It's not that far, so I waved. And then the cops showed up.
So we can see on history.com on this day in history, this was published April 24th, 2024. And it says, on June 14th, 2015, sheriff's deputies in Missouri discovered a grisly scene, the bloody body of Claudine Dee Dee Blanchard, blah, 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 blah. And it goes through basically, describing the crime scene. And it says, from Gypsy Rose's infancy, Dee Dee brought her to more than 100 doctors claiming fictitious ailments ranging from Down syndrome and muscular dystrophy, Down syndrome, I didn't know she ever claimed she had Down syndrome, but to epilepsy and leukemia. According to Gypsy's stepmother, Christy Blanchard, Dee Dee stole prescription pads from the hospital where she worked at as a nurse's aide to acquire drugs that would induce symptoms to fool doctors. Gypsy underwent years of unnecessary treatments and surgeries, including eye surgery, removal of her salivary glands, and insertion of a feeding tube. Dee Dee shaved her daughter's head to make it look like she was undergoing chemotherapy and forced her to use a wheelchair. Local neighbors all rallied around the mother and the daughter, praising Dee Dee as a paragon of selfless devotion and showering them with everything from a free house to all expenses paid trips to Disney World. So we can see here where it's going to show us the source. And right here, March 25th, 2019, perfectly healthy, pretty little baby, Rod told ABC News. I was excited and very scared. He says, I told Dee Dee that she was the best mother. Rod told 2020, there's no way I can do what you do. You have a sick child. It's constantly 24/7 taking care of her. I always praised her, but she didn't exactly return the sentiment, often telling neighbors that Rod didn't pay child support or even try to have a relationship with Gypsy. In reality, Dee Dee was receiving checks $1,200 a month. Rod and his new wife, Christy, would have visits but never had any alone time with the daughter. All the visits, Dee Dee had to be there the entire time. Dee Dee was so controlling of her, Christy recalled. Aside from the money being sent to her by Rod, Dee Dee and Gypsy were the recipients of donations and disability payments. When they were left displaced and homeless after Hurricane Katrina in 2005, they received their dream home from Habitat for Humanity in Springfield in 2008. Blah, 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 blah. Like, holy blank. My mouth dropped from the top to the bottom, full of so many medications. The linen closet was filled with hundreds of prescriptions, some that were filled illegally, as Dee Dee had stolen prescription pads. How they would know that? I don't know. So obviously, when these images started coming out, a lot of people were talking about them, and whenever you notice as a physician that your paperwork or your prescription pad has gone missing, law enforcement, you are not supposed to let it wait. You are not supposed to just, hope it turns up later. You have to immediately report it to the police. And not only that, you have to immediately report it to the DEA. And you have to immediately report it to your own internal departments. In Missouri especially, you have to notify the Missouri Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. And you have to make sure that, this is covered, exactly which pad it is, what number it is, so it can be flagged according to online what you're supposed to do. You have to notify all of these things in order to kind of prevent anybody from filling a prescription illegally. Now, I don't know how often this happened with people losing their prescription pads or whatever. Who knows? And then we have Fancy, who we know was involved with the Blanchard family. She said that she has looked through all of these papers and looked through all of these documents, and for this to now magically be there and searched for it and even brought it up directly to Christy and Rod and whoever, it's a little interesting. I'll play some of Fancy's videos for you guys, for those of you guys that don't have TikTok or watch, and what she says is kind of intriguing. We know that Fancy has a little bit of a interesting history, I guess I could say, with the Blanchard family, and it turned out, they were kind of partners in the beginning, and then it all crashed out. And for this to be from Children's Mercy Hospital in Missouri kind of eliminates the whole story that Christine Rod originally gave about it being from the Louisiana hospital that Dee Dee, Christy, and Laura all worked at together. So that doesn't make sense either.
Wives Network, and I just came across this whole thing about the prescription pad that Gypsy has put out, and that she magically found this prescription pad in this box that came from the house with all the pictures. Here's the funny thing about that. I already looked through that entire box. All of them. And Melissa Moore's looked through them. And Erin Lee Carr's looked through them. Sophie's looked through them. Dr. Phil's looked through them. And what's really funny is in all those times, no one ever found the prescription pad that you were claiming Dee Dee stole. I asked Christy for it when she claimed that she had found it, and her answer to me was, I don't have it. I turned it over to Mike. So if you, Christy, turned it over to Mike, can I ask you how this all happened? And let's remember, I asked Rod about this last year, and he stumbled over explaining to me where he found the pad. So you want us to believe that everything else that was in that box is yellowed and dusty and all those different things, but this magical prescription pad is in pristine condition. It doesn't have any writings that you can see from any other prescriptions that often happen on the prescription pads, or any type of pad that you write through. It'll go through to the next level. You have it. But what's really funny, again, can I ask you, why doesn't Mike have it? Why doesn't Greene County Sheriff's Department have it? Because according to the first story, that didn't include cat shit, by the way, Christy told me that she turned over the rugs that she took from the house and the prescription pad that she found over to Mike Stanfield.
So why is it not in evidence? Why wasn't it presented to prosecution? Why was this not logged? How in the world did this get missed by everyone for 10 years? And why couldn't you produce it for me for the last 10 years when I asked for it? I asked you for proof. If you had proof, you would know you had proof because you would know that you'd thrown it in a box somewhere. Well, the funny thing is I sat on your living room floor and I went through those boxes, Christy, and no one else besides me has ever found it either. I were releasing it now because the timing of it seems very odd. However, I do remember that I was talking about it last week or the other day when I was telling people what was the final straw between me and Christy, and it was this prescription pad. And so now I feel like the prescription pad showing up all of a sudden, very sus. We plugged this in to Google, and it came back with an answer to one of the people that I was talking with. And the answer is that this is a referral pad or an equipment pad, which is what I think it is. I do think it probably was an equipment pad. I don't think this is a specific doctor's pad. Specifically, one of the reasons why is because all of the clinics are listed at the top, which would be more of a generic form than a doctor's form. A lot of the doctor's forms have their name specifically and their clinic specifically. So if it came from like an actual doctor, then I would think that it would have some of that identifying information. It is a 2007 document. That's indicated by the numbers at the bottom. And I just began working through what I think could this all be about.
But, you know, funny enough, when Fancy started talking about it, she also was like encouraging people to report that Gypsy still had this prescription pad on her person or whatever. And I don't know how it works. I've kind of read a little bit that you have to have the intention of stealing it, but I don't know how I feel like it would be easier to prove that you had the intent to fill a fake prescription by possessing a prescription pad. So if they really wanted to prosecute her, they probably could. Who knows? But she did end up going to the pharmacy and dropping it off. I think she probably got a little bit spooked that people were actually going to report her for having this, stolen prescription pad that she admits is stolen. Even though she would not have been able to use it because it's expired and nobody really uses written prescriptions anymore.
Okay, so this is an update to my last video. Please do not zoom in on my gigantic blemish. Sorry, I had to start off that. So this is an update. I Googled where I could take the prescription pad to be disposed of, and Google said that I can deliver it to hand it over to a pharmacy. So a pharmacy is a little closer than a police station for me right now. So I'm going to go and bring it. And I'm going to record the whole thing. So let's go. I was going through a box of old photos, and this is like 15 years old. My mom had stole this from a hospital, and I wanted to turn it in. Well, I could bring it to a pharmacy. Yeah, so I'll turn it for you. All right, thank you so much. Have a good day. You too.
Two things, Gypsy, I wanted to say earlier, I was listening. If you wanted to, you could take that pad and take a pen and put a big old huge X on each sheet and throw it away. But me personally, after these threats made, I'm too stubborn. I'd have it right in my hand and say, bitch, come for me. And secondly, there's some people in the comments that want to know if you're okay discussing all of these things, or does it trigger you?
And I personally, like with the prescription pad, when I found it day before yesterday, I was kind of like, oh wow, I heard about it, but to see it, and then a little while later, I just started processing, and then I just got angry, and that's when I made the video that I posted. And so I apologize to anybody in the medical field. I'm sorry if I come across, or I came across as rude or definitely accusing, but I'm processing right now, and my sister's in the medical field, and when I knew that she was training to become a nurse and everything, I told Christy, I'm I think Mia's going to be the only nurse that I like. Because it's for a long time I've had this resentment towards doctors and nurses. When I was in prison, I didn't even go up to medical very often unless I absolutely needed to. I had an upper respiratory infection, or I had to get a pap smear or something like that. So looking at it, I'm just going through the emotions, because it's whenever I open a box from the past, it's literally like a time capsule. And it's taking me back to that time. I don't enjoy it. I stayed up until midnight that night. Usually I go to bed about 7. And I'm Ken was are you coming to bed? I was no, I don't want to do this more than once. So I'm going to get it done tonight. So, yes, it is triggering. And that's why I don't like looking at stuff like that. I leave the past in the past for a reason. I'm not worried about the threats and, people calling the cops on me. Like, I didn't steal it. So, and it's a 10, 15, 20-year-old prescription pad. Like, it's just a piece of paper now. Like, but you're right, Sheena. Like, I probably will just mark an X on it, flush it. Like, I think flushing is probably a good idea.
Shred it. That's what I've seen somebody say, shred it.
Like, shred it, flush it.
Don't flush it. You're going to need a plumber if you do that.
Burn it. Let's disagree. A piece of evidence. You should write all these people some psych meds.
Mail it to Fancy.
I think you should write 10 individuals some psych meds.
I would probably give you money for it.
No, I'm going to do the responsible thing, guys.
I wouldn't get rid of it because I'm too stubborn. I'd be like, come for me, bitch. It's right here in my hand.
Oh, I'm not afraid.
I know.
That's
just what I would do is what I'm saying.
Can I take it in my possession, Gypsy? I'll go get it tomorrow. Can I take it into my possession?
Why are you asking on a live right now, Rose?
No, send it to Fancy. We're going to set up Fancy. Get that. She's wanted. Now she's going to have a felony, like they call it.
I'm already a felon.
He's already
We're going to be getting ready to bond it out. He's going to go around Becca's scoops. Don't give him that pad.
Don't give it to Becca.
No, you need to sign it and say, I know you've been longing for this, Fancy. Love, Gypsy.
Don't you have it around Becca's scoops, damn it.
I know. Becca's going to be.
Send me an
We gotta be responsible, guys.
Oh, you could sell autographs on it. That was good, Ray.
That was a trigger. Man, when you posted them, man, Becca was like the good old days.
Oh my God.
Remember when?
You remember when?
And I can't help but wonder why no one from Gypsy's family, whenever they discovered this prescription pad, why was this not turned into the police along with the other evidence? Did they just keep it and plan to hide it, or what was the intentions of keeping it and never turning it in? Because even though the crime scene was cleared for them to go in and collect some things, that doesn't mean that you're allowed to take anything that could be considered as evidence. That's just like a duh moment. Like, you can't just take whatever you want. It's considered, evidence. Now, like the family photos and all that crap and like the whatever stuff that they were getting, that doesn't matter. But you're finding something, first of all, that's illegal to have, and you're just gonna keep it there. That's really weird behavior to me, that they just decided to keep it all these years. I don't know, but I'm almost surprised that it's like so clean and the way that it looks. But something else that's funny to me is that, when Gypsy kind of like was talking in her book, she said that her mother was really good at like creating things like birth certificates, and she would like cut and paste and do all these things in a way to kind of like create documents and things like that. So I can't help but wonder, why isn't it possible that maybe Dee Dee created this? Gypsy says that she believed that her mom was like helping create like fake social security cards or doing this major copying and pasting and like editing of these documents. And even her own birth certificate, she believed that her mother created her own new birth certificate instead of just writing it in there, but she was like a master on the computer and would do this for income on the side. So, I mean, is that not a possibility, that she maybe just created this fake prescription pad? I don't know, but I feel like, again, like, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me why she would have it. I don't know, I feel like it would just be, that'd be a pretty bold move, knowing how serious prescription fraud is, and just taking it, knowing that they would be the last patients in there. Like, I don't know why she would risk going to jail like that, but, maybe it's possible, or maybe it was Gypsy that did it. I would feel like maybe she would do it. She probably would be kind of, reckless enough to do it. That is something that somebody like Gypsy would do. I mean, look at the way that she planned her murder. Like, she didn't really kind of think of the outcomes of what her actions would be. So, something along the lines of this isn't really surprising. But for somebody like Dee Dee, she never wanted to get caught ever. There was zero intention of being caught, and she kind of did a really good job of not getting caught when it comes to the fraud thing. And, her having this, why, if she really did have Munchausen by proxy, then why was she not, like, writing it for the most intense medications at all then? Then she would have it literally at her disposal. She could have got anything. And when we look in the crime scene, we all can sit there and see that a lot of these medications are just over the counter. Yeah, they have a lot of refills of antibiotics and stuff like that. I mean, God, I've got freaking antibiotics in my cabinet that's like 4 years old. Like, people just do that, and they'll keep medications and they don't just throw them away instantly. But overall, it's not like these were like deadly medications, like stuff that you need to keep locked away because it's so dangerous that the average person can't handle, type of stuff. It was like inhalers and, Miralax, things like that, that it's not that crazy to have multiple amounts of it, I guess I could say. So let's read what she has to say. I do remember Mama bought a Gateway computer and started doing photo restoration with it. She had a little business where she would take old and scratched up prints and fix them up real nice. She could cut and paste people into paintings, like this one time when she made Jesus the captain of a boat on the stormy seas. Another one I remember was an image of her as a baby superimposed on a photograph of her holding me as a baby. I watched her print out numbers 1 through 10 and cut the numbers and paste them on a document and scan the document and print it out so that it looked official. She got really good at the cut and paste job, which makes me wonder now if her business was forgery, like helping kids get fake IDs or making fake social security cards to steal identities. Well, all in all, I feel like it matters that Gypsy is showing us this. I mean, yeah, I like to see it just because, that does answer one thing, that it does exist, maybe. It's just hard to tell. Does it prove anything? Not really. I mean, it just proves that Gypsy has a prescription pad in her possession, or she did. Whether it was taken by accident or on purpose, we don't know. Whether it was Dee Dee or Gypsy that took it, still don't know. We do know that Dee Dee didn't actually use it to write for any prescriptions in order to get Gypsy, all kinds of, medications to make her sicker and sicker like a typical Munchausen by proxy parent would do. No, I mean, as a matter of fact, we know that Gypsy in this case never got close to death. That is something that I always like to point out, is like every single Munchausen by proxy parent, they literally try to get their kid as close to death as possible, and Gypsy was out riding horses and swimming with the dolphins at Disney World. And the thing about malingering, it's not really mental illness, it's just fraud. It's just a fun way to say fraudulent. And I think that's why all of us feel like Dee Dee was literally just malingering. That doesn't make it good. It was just fraud. It was all for money. And that's very different than medically abusing your child. And I feel like any Munchausen by proxy parent that had access to a prescription pad, because it is a mental illness, there's no way that they would just let it sit there. I mean, that would be pointless. I don't know, though. I know a lot of people kind of go back and forth thinking it's fake. Who knows? I guess it really doesn't matter, especially now anyways, because nobody uses like written prescriptions anymore, and I don't feel like it really does anything for Gypsy's side. I know Bree and Gypsy and all of them feel like it does, but my opinion is that it's just that now we saw it. I think it's, convenient, of course, that it's being shown now and it wasn't shown in any other documentaries, wasn't turned over to the police. That's a little weird. I think that's weird behavior. I feel like any other person finding evidence like that would turn it over to the police. I think it's also funny that all of the stories that they told about Dee Dee having this prescription pad from Louisiana and using it to write 1 million different prescriptions for Gypsy to make her sick and basically poison her, are obviously all very false. I find that a little funny too. But, I want to know your thoughts on everything. What do you think about this whole scenario? Do you think it matters, or do you think it really proves anything for you? So drop your thoughts down below in the comments. As always, don't forget to like and hit the subscribe button. I will see you on the next one. Bye.